Hey y'all, I'm Elisa and I am the Scrappy Wife behind scrappywife.com, and today I have an art journal process video for you. I'm working in this new art journal that one of my good friends made for me. It's kind of like a junk journal style that she pieced together from some old scrapbook paper and notebook paper and various different things. And so I thought I would give it a try doing some work in this journal. So it's super cute. Love the glitter. I just love it. It's so fun, and I think it's going to be fun to create in it. So I'm going to start working in this journal, and then I'm going to use this Dina Wakley Collage collective, and this is just sets of Dina's own paintings and own mixed media things, and half of it is in a thinner paper and half of it is in a thicker kind of cardstock paper. So I'm going to play with that and we'll just see what happens. I'm just in the mood to get messy, get colorful, and try some different things. I will list all the supplies down below, and otherwise, let's go. Like I said, I was definitely in the mood to get messy, to get the paint out, to do some things. With my kids being home now, it's really precious the time that I can spend in my craft room, and so I just want to enjoy it as much as possible. I pulled out, this is some Jane Davenport acrylic paint, which I really like because it doesn't dry with a sheen. It looks shiny right now, but it doesn't dry with a sheen, which is great for art journaling. And I'm just covering both of these pages. I'm not trying to get full coverage. This is the inside of the book, and then the very first page, I wasn't the biggest fan of the scrapbook paper that was on the first page of that color scheme. I was wanting to go much brighter, so I decided I'll just paint over it. And so you can see I'm just trying to get a few of those brush strokes out of there and just having a good time playing with the yellow. And I was enjoying the yellow so much that I decided to go ahead and pull out a couple of different yellows from the Handmade Modern line from Target that I happen to have on hand, and I'm going to mix in those yellows with just some different brush strokes of different sizes. And I'm loving my media mat. If you guys haven't seen this before, this is the Tim Holtz media mat. It's great for things like this. I can pour paint out, I can work on it, I can wipe it off super easily, and whenever I'm art journaling, I always like being on top of my media mat, getting to use it, and it just makes it much easier, much less of a mess actually in my creative space, which is awesome. So again, I'm mixing in just some different yellows to add a little bit of dimension and interest in the background so it's not just solid. You can see that a little bit of that scrap paper is going to peek through. Not a big deal. It just adds, like I said, some more depth. You can see a little bit of the pattern, but all of the colors have now been toned down. And I'm enjoying playing with the yellows. Again, bright, happy, something fun to concentrate on. Now for some contrast, I pull out this next color from the Jane Davenport line, and it's kind of a turquoisey teal. I'm going to use a smaller brush and just add a few strokes here and there, some interest, just some little art marks with a smaller brush to add some contrast to the page. You can see I'm going to try to go in some little groups. It ends up being a lot, but I liked it. I liked the change that added to the page and the contrast. And right now it's at the point in this art journal page where it looks like a hot mess, and sometimes it can be frustrating to be at that point, but I was excited to just keep adding. Like I said, I was excited to just be playing and having fun in my craft room. I pull out this Dilutions shimmer spray in this bright pink, and I'm covering up all of the edges because my paint hadn't really covered the edges very well, and so I just went for it with the shimmer spray, added as much as I could, and you can see me kind of cleaning up little bits here and there off of some cutting boards that I use, and then I will come back, make sure that's really dry before I decide to keep adding over the top. Next up, there is always room for my favorite color, which happens to be purple, and so I have some Dilutions paint right here, and this might actually be a Dilutions stencil, either that or Dina Wakley. I'll have to look, I'll see if I can find it and link it below. And I'm just adding some purple paint. This is rather thin paint, so I'm not trying to make it a solid coverage here, but I'm just going through the circles, adding a little bit of interest in the bottom right hand corner, and then I will repeat the same process over up at the top left. And I want to create kind of an eye line across the page. You have the top left down to the bottom right, but I really only wanted it in 2 spots because I knew I was going to be adding some collage on top of this, and I didn't want it to be too crazy in the background, so just a little bit of interest right here with the purple circles. This next part is a little bit hard to see on camera, but what I'm going to do is I'm going around each of the circles and adding a little stitch mark with my Micron pen. And this, yes, was a little bit tedious to do, but like I said, this has been a huge stress relief for me, and this actually turned out to be a really important art journal page. While I was creating it, I found out that Virginia was closing their schools for the whole rest of the year, which meant my kids would be home for a solid 6 months out of the year out of school, which is kind of crazy and baffling to think about. And it has been overwhelming. Everything has kind of been overwhelming. And at this point, I was just trying to process, trying to think through. I'm adding a little bit more stenciling through the same stencil, but this time without the purple, just to offset it a little bit, adding some more circles. But as I'm doing some of this more tedious work, I'm just trying to process everything that's going on, and that's what being creative does for me. It allows me that time to kind of get out of my own head and just kind of let things soak in. All right, while I started blabbing on, this is a sheet from that Collage collective that I showed you in the beginning, and it's kind of like faux washi strips, I guess you would say. And I picked it because it was kind of hard to decide what I wanted to use out of the Collage grouping, but this one had the best of all the worlds. Lots of different patterns, lots of colors, and I am trimming them out and trying to loosely organize them in groups. So the group at the top is kind of bluish purples. Then I have ones that have predominant green colors, predominant pinks, and predominant yellows. And I'm going to group them like that on my page. Like I said, it's not really strict, but it does kind of loosely work that those colors kind of go together. And you can see I'm going to lay them out. I love the faces. I think that's so fun. And I'm just, like I said, laying them out. I'm going to have 2 on the left side here and then 2 on the right with these groupings and kind of making columns in a way. I'm just kind of playing with the different combinations that I can make and trying to figure out how I can add all of these colors, all of these patterns on the page without it being too overwhelming. Once I do get them all situated onto the page how I like them, you can see how much trial and error kind of goes into this. I end up trimming off the end of each piece, the end that's actually in the art journal entry, into kind of a banner style, cutting off a little triangle at the end just to let it look a little bit more finished. And I'll go through with just some typical Elmer's glue. I didn't use matte gel medium to put them down yet. I just wanted to use Elmer's glue because I know I want to go around them with something else, and I wasn't going to be patient enough for the matte gel medium to dry. So just a little bit of Elmer's glue to make sure they stay in place while I work through other parts of the page. You can see still playing with the placement, and I'll get these last couple put down and then trim off all of the edges and continue to add on from there. Now that I have all of my faux washi kind of moving across the page, I've created these pillars or columns, you might call them, and I want them to stand out even more. So I come just with a typical black Sharpie. I'm going to trace around the edge of each one to have it stand out. And this kind of is going to create a platform for what I plan to do later on. So I'm kind of thinking of these as buildings, pillars, something for someone to stand on, for something to be anchored on, was the concept that was going on in my head. I really liked how they kind of had this rainbow motif going on, grouped with similar colors, and I liked how they were standing out from the page. So this is a Dina Wakley stamp set that I have, and I'm going to choose a few of these stamps, just a couple of them, use them to stamp out some people. So at this point, the art journal has taken on a theme, and the idea is an individual, like feelings are an individual thing. And with all of the craziness going on, I feel like the news is telling us to feel one way. I feel like we go on social media and we have friends or acquaintances that say you should be feeling this way, you should be feeling fearful, you should be feeling brave, you should be feeling whatever. And I want to feel how I want to feel. Like, I don't know that you can control how you feel about things. I know that you can control how you react to your feelings and what you do with your feelings, but the feeling is there. And so at this point, I was really just tired of people telling me how I was supposed to be feeling. And so these people were representing, these stamps were representing just individuals that had their own feeling, their own sense, their own ideas. So they're in their individual colors and their individual washi schemes, standing out on their own. So I don't always get a good stamp impression. This is the beginning of an art journal, so it's kind of uneven as far as where I can press and how the stamp works. But that's okay, because what I end up doing is coming back with the Sharpie and filling in scribbly wise and outlining so that these individuals stand out a little bit more. You can see I'm going to really highlight her skirt right here, fill in parts of it, make sure the legs stand out, things like that. And that's what's great about stamping in this black, is that I can always go back and add. And these people are meant to be kind of abstract and sketchy anyway, so it works out really well that I can just add the detail that I want to add. In order to have my people that I stamped stand out from their backgrounds, I am going to add some white paint pen, and I'm going along the edges. I choose to add highlights on the underneath parts and on the right side of the figures. I've never had formal art training, so I don't know if this is the correct place to add the shadow highlight effect, but for me, I like how it looks. My paint pen is running a little bit low, and so I end up having to come back and do a second coat on these highlights just so it's a little bit of a bolder white that pops off the page. This does a couple of things. It really gives these figures some more dimension, and it sets them off from the background so that you are drawn to them. Of course, you're drawn to them anyway. They're one of the main focal points on the page, but it kind of lets them pop off of the page right at you. For the title of this page, I'm using some Tim Holtz Foam Alpha stamps that I love. They're kind of my go-to, especially for art journaling, because they're nice and bold, and I am inking them up in VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I will stamp out the word stop nice and large right there. And then I will come back with my Micron pen, and oh, this is where I'm coming back over with the white. You can see that second coat really makes it stand out. It makes it a more opaque look. I'm not sure why it didn't work. All I can say is maybe my paint pen is running a little bit low. So if you have a white paint pen that you love for art journaling, let me know. I really am enjoying paint pens, and I think I'd like to invest in some more. So if you have a brand you love, let me know, because I'd like to look into some. So I have the word stop, and then I'm adding some journaling right there saying, stop telling me how to feel. And I'll come back with that lettering, add a little more bulk to it, a little bit more highlight, and then that's going to be all I do as far as the title goes. No need for anything else. That's just exactly how I'm feeling in this moment. So the last step for this page is going to be pulling out that white paint pen one more time. Once I get this title all finished, I'll pull out that white paint pen to add some splatters across the page, just to make it a little bit more messy and to bring in the white to where those purple circles are. So you can see I'm just really getting the paint all the way to the tip of my paint pen and then flicking it onto the paper, and this layout is done. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. I have links below to all the supplies I used and a link to sign up for my bi-weekly newsletter that's full of organization tips and craft tips and all kinds of scrappy fun. I hope you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.